Early on Friday, Sergeant Bo Bergdahl, who was traded for 5 Taliban detainees after being held captive for 5 years in Afghanistan, arrived in the United States. He's now at an Army medical center in San Antonio, Texas. At a hearing on Wednesday, Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel told the House Armed Services Committee the decision to exchange the Taliban 5 for Bergdahl was the right one. California Congressman Buck McKeon, who chairs that committee, joins me now. Congressman, I'm delighted to have you here. I want to begin by first getting your reaction to the situation in Iraq. It clearly is spiraling out of control. You heard the colonel and his assessment. From the perspective of being the chairman of the Armed Services Committee, what are your major concerns as we watch these events unfold?
Well, first of all, there will be people that want to say, I told you so. I think this is probably not an appropriate time to be doing that. We have people, thousands of people are Americans in Iraq right now. And if there's anything we learned from Benghazi, it's first we need to protect our people. And that should be our #1 priority. I love to play golf, but if the president really is playing golf this weekend, that's a real shame. This is a very serious crisis. And this idea of leading from behind, hands-off approach, just really not working. We need to lead from in front, and to do that, we have to stop cutting our national security resources. In the last couple of years, we've cut over $1 trillion out of our national security, and we're paying the price for it.
One of the things that the colonel mentioned was not having any forces agreement that would at least have some presence there. Looking back, was that one of the fundamental mistakes that were made here?
Oh, no question. It's very obvious. If we had left a presence behind, if we'd been able to negotiate that status of forces agreement, we wouldn't be having this problem now. And that's why it's very important that we don't have that in Afghanistan. We've negotiated that in Afghanistan, and the president has now made a decision to leave 9,800 troops behind, and NATO will add about 5,000 troops. They will be there to make sure that this same scenario doesn't play out in Afghanistan.
Sergeant Bo Bergdahl is now back on American soil, but the Taliban five very desperate and dangerous people are no longer in American hands. They're off in the Middle East and supposedly in Qatar safely, but I don't think any of us have any illusion that they're going to stay there and they're going to check in at the local Holiday Inn and just take it easy. What concerns do you have? You chair one of the most important committees in Congress that oversees the military. Should there have been a little conversation going on between the administration and folks like you in your position before this deal was made?
The hearing that we had the other day with the secretary and their legal counsel was, I walked out of there learning several things. #1, that we actually did negotiate with terrorists, which breaks a long time precedent. And #2, because of that, we're less safe than we were just a few weeks ago. The fact that they kept Congress in the dark for several months, had 80 to 90 people that knew about this operation coming forward, and not a single elected member in Congress. It really boggles the mind. They briefed us on this earlier, and Congress pushed back on it, and I think that's the reason they didn't tell us about it this time. And my concern is that they broke the law. We passed a law that said before you move any detainees out of Guantanamo, that you give Congress 30 days notice so that we can look at it and see what a problem that will cause in the future. And they didn't do it, and frankly, I'm very concerned that this sets a precedent that they can just say, well, there were circumstances such that we don't need to tell the Congress. That's just not going to fly.
And it shouldn't fly, Congressman. It shouldn't. I mean, you're entrusted with the responsibility of oversight, and you can't do it if the administration doesn't understand the constitutional obligation to work with you. Appreciate your being here. It is a genuine pleasure. We know there's a lot on your plate, and Congressman McKeon, it's nice to have you with us. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Governor.
Well, he says the message sent was loud and clear. Stop ignoring the Tea Party. Coming up, Kansas Congressman Tim Huelskamp on what Majority Leader Eric Cantor's primary defeat might mean for the Republican Party. That's coming up right after this.